Khureb BeRuakh, Sword of the Spirit, narrated and interpreted by Wendy. Aster, Esther. Chapter 1. In the second year of the reign of Ahasuerus, the great king, on the 1st of Nisan, Mardukkai, the son of Yair, the son of Shimei, son of Kish, of the tribe of Benjamin, a Yahudi dwelling in the city of Sheshun, a great man serving the king's palace, saw a vision. Now he was of the captives which Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babel, had carried away, with 𝐤𝐄𝐄, king of Yehuda. And this was his dream: behold, voice and noise, thunders and earthquakes. Chaos was upon the earth, and behold, two great serpents came forth, both ready for conflict. And a great voice came from them, and by their voice every nation was prepared for battle, to fight against the nation of the just. And behold, a day of darkness and blackness, tribulation and anguish, afflictions. And they prepared to die, and cried to Elohim. And from this cry there came, as it were, a great river from a little fountain, even much water. The light and the sun arose, and the lowly was exalted, devouring the honorable. And Mardukkai, who had seen the visions and what Elohim desired to do, having awakened, kept it in his heart and desired by all means to interpret it until night. And Mardukkai rested quiet in the palace with Bigthana and Joresh, the king's two chamberlains, eunuchs who guarded the palace. And he heard their reasoning, and searched out their plans, and learned that they were preparing to lay hands upon the king, Ahasuerus. And he informed the king concerning them. And the king examined the two chamberlain. Thus they confessed and were executed. And the king wrote these things for a memorial. Also Mardukkai wrote concerning these matters. And the king commanded Mardukkai to attend in the palace, and gave gifts for his service. And Haman, the son of Hammedatha, was honorable in the sight of the king. However, he endeavored to hurt Mardukkai and his people, because of the two chamberlains of the king. Chapter 2. Now it came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus, this is Ahasuerus who reigned from India even to Cush, 127 provinces. In those days the king Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom, which is in the palace of Shushan. In the 3rd year of his reign, he made a feast to all his captains and his servants. The power of Paraz and Media, the nobles and captains of the provinces, were before him. Then he showed the riches of his glorious kingdom and the honor of his excellent majesty many days, 180 days. And when these days were expired, the king made a feast to all the people who were present in Shushan the palace, both to great and small, for 7 days, in the court of the garden of the king's palace. White and blue and purple tapestries were fastened with cords of fine linen to silver rings and marble pillars. The beds were of gold and silver upon a pavement of red and blue and white and black marble, and they gave drink in vessels of gold, the vessels being diverse one from another, and royal wine in abundance, according to the state of the king. And the drinking was according to the law. None did compel, for so the king had appointed to all the officers of his house, that they will do according to every man's pleasure. Also Vashti the queen made a feast for the women in the royal house, which belonged to King Ahasuerus. On the 7th day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he commanded Mehuman, Biztha, Harbuna, Bigtha, and Abgatha, Zetar, and Karkas, the 7 chamberlains who served in the presence of Ahasuerus the king, to bring Vashti the queen before the king with the royal crown, to show the people and the captains her beauty, for she was fair to look upon. But Queen Vashti refused to come at the king's commandment by his chamberlains. Therefore the king was very wroth, and his anger burned in him. Then the king said to the wise men, who knew the times, for so was the king's manner toward all who knew law and judgment. And next to him were Karshina, Shetar, Admatha, Tarshish, Merez, Marsina, Memukan, the 7 captains of Perez, and Madai, who saw the king's face, who sat the highest in the kingdom. What will we do to Queen Vashti according to law? Because she has not performed the commandment of the king Ahasuerus by the chamberlains. And Memukan answered before the king of the captains, Vashti the queen has not done wrong to the king only, but also to all the captains, and to all the people who are in all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus. For the deed of the queen will come abroad to all women, so that they will despise their husbands in their eyes, when it is reported. The king Ahasuerus commanded Vashti the queen to be brought in before him, but she did not come. And that day the ladies of Perez and Media will say this to all the king's captains, who had heard the deed of the queen. Thus there will arise too much contempt and wrath. If it pleases the king, let there be a royal commandment from him, and let it be written among the laws of Perez and of Madai, so that it is not altered, so that Vashti does not come before King Ahasuerus any more, and let the king give her royal estate to another that is better than she. And when the king's decree, which he will publish throughout all his empire, for it is great, all the wives will give to their husbands honor, both to the great and small. And the saying pleased the king and the captains, and the king did according to the word of Memukan. For he sent letters into all the king's provinces, and to every people after their language, so that every man will bear rule in his own house, and that it will be published according to the language of every people. Chapter 3. After these things, when the wrath of the king Ahasuerus was appeased, he remembered Vashti, and what she had done, and what was decreed against her. Then the king's servants, who ministered to him, said, Let fair young virgins be sought for the king, and let the king appoint officers to all the provinces of his kingdom, so that they may gather all the fair young virgins to Shushan the palace, to the house of the women, to the custody of Hagah, the king's chamberlain, keeper of the women, and let their things for purification be given. And let the maiden who pleases the king become queen instead of Vashti. And the thing pleased the king, and he did so. In Shushan the palace there was a certain Yehudi, whose name was Mardukai, the son of Yair, the son of Shimei, the son of Kish, a Binyamini, who had been carried away from Yerushalayim with the captivity which had been carried away with Yekuniah, king of Yehuda, whom Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babel, had carried away. And he brought up Hadassah, who is Aster, his uncle's daughter, for she had neither father nor mother, and the maid was fair and beautiful, whom Mardukai, when her father and mother were dead, took for his own daughter. So it came to pass when the king's commandment and his decree was heard, and when many maidens were gathered together to Shushan the palace, to the custody of Hagah, so too Aster was brought to the king's house, to the custody of Hagah, keeper of the women. And the maiden pleased him, and she obtained kindness from him, and he steadily gave her things for purification, with such things as belonged to her, and 7 maidens who were given to her, out of the king's house. And he moved her and her maids to the best of the house of the women. Aster had not showed her people, nor her kindred, for Mardukai instructed her that she would not show it. And Mardukkai walked every day before the court of the woman's house, to know how Aster did, and what will become of her. Now, when every maid's turn had come to go in to King Ahasuerus, after she had been 12 months, according to the manner of the women, for so were the days of their purification accomplished, 6 months with oil of myrrh, and 6 months with sweet scents, and with things for the purifying of the women. Then every woman came to the king. Whatever she desired was given to her to go with her out of the house of the women to the king's house. In the evening she went, and on the morrow she returned into the second house of the women, to the custody of Shez-Azgaz, the king's chamberlain, to keep the concubines. She came in to the king no more, except the king delighted in her, and that she were called by name. Now when it was the turn of Aster, the daughter of Abihail, the uncle of Mardukkai, who had taken her for his daughter, had come to go into the king, she required nothing but what Hega, the king's chamberlain, the keeper of the women, appointed. And Aster obtained favor in the sight of all those who looked upon her. So Aster was taken to King Ahasuerus into his royal house in the 10th month, which is the month Shabat, in the 7th year of his reign. And the king loved Aster above all women, and she obtained grace and favor in his sight more than all the virgins, so that he set the royal crown upon her head, and he made her queen instead of Vashti. Then the king made a great feast to all his captains and his servants, even Aster's feast, and he made a release to the provinces, and gave gifts according to the state of the king. And when the virgins were gathered together the second time, then Mardukkai sat in the king's gate. Aster still had not revealed her kindred nor her people, as Mardukkai had instructed her. For Aster did the commandment of Mardukkai, like when she was brought up with him. In those days, while Mardukkai sat in the king's gate, 2 of the king's chamberlain, Bigithoth and Teresh, and those who kept the door, were wroth and sought to lay hands upon the king Ahasuerus. And the thing was known to Mardukkai, who told it to Aster the queen. And Aster certified the king, and Aster informed the king of it in Mardukkai's name. And when the inquisition was made of the matter, it was found out. Therefore they were both hanged on a tree, and it was known in the Sefer of the Chronicles of the King. Chapter 4. After these things, King Ahasuerus promoted Haman, the son of Hammedate, the Agagi, and advanced him, and set his seat above all the captains who were with him. And all the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed and worshipped Haman. For the king had commanded this concerning him. But Mardukkai did not bow, nor did he worship. Then the king's servants, which were in the king's gate, said to Mardukkai, Why do you transgress the king's commandment? Now it came to pass that they spoke to him daily, but he did not hearken to them. So they told Haman to see whether Mardukkai's matter would stand, for he had told them that he was a Yehudi. And when Haman saw that Mordecai did not bow, nor did he worship him, then Haman was full of wrath, and he thought scorn to lay hands upon Mordecai alone, for they had showed him the people of Mardukkai. Therefore Haman sought to destroy the Yehudim, the people of Mardukkai, who were throughout the entire kingdom of Ahasuerus. In the 1st month, that is the month of Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast pur, that is the lot, before Haman from day to day, and from month to month, to the 12th month, which is the month of Adar. And Haman said to King Ahasuerus, There is a certain people scattered abroad, and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of your kingdom, and their laws are different from all people. Neither do they keep the king's laws. Therefore it is not for the king's profit to suffer them. If it pleases the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed, and I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the hands of those who have the charge of the business, to bring it into the king's treasures. And the king took his ring from his hand, and gave it to Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agagi, the enemy of the Yehudim. And the king said to Haman, the silver is given to you, the people also, to do with them as seems good to you. Then the king's scribes were called on the 13th day of the first month, and there was written according to all that Haman had commanded the king's lieutenants, and to the governors that were over every province, and to the rulers of every people of every province according to its writing, and to every people after their language. In the name of King Ahasuerus, it was written and sealed with the king's ring. And the letters were sent by post into all the king's provinces to destroy, to kill, and to cause to perish all Yehudim, both young and old, little children and women, in one day, upon the 13th of the 12th month, which is the month Adar, and to take the plunder of them for a prey. The copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published to all people, so that they would be ready for that day. The post went out, being hastened by the king's commandment, and the decree was given in Shushan, the palace. And the king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city Shushan was perplexed. Chapter 5. When Mordecai perceived all that was done, Mordecai tore his clothes, and put on sackcloth with ashes, and went out into the midst of the city, and cried with a loud and bitter cry. And he even came before the king's gate, for no one might enter into the king's gate clothed with sackcloth. And in every province, wherever the king's commandment and his decree came, there was a great mourning among the Yehudim, and fasting, and weeping, and wailing, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes. So Ashtar's maid and her chamberlains came and told it to her. Then the queen was very grieved, and she sent raiment to clothe Mordecai, and to take away his sackcloth from him, but he did not receive it. Then Aster called for Ha'ak, the king's chamberlains, whom he had appointed to attend upon her, and gave him a commandment to Mordecai, to know what it was, and why it was. So Hanak went forth to Mordecai, to the street of the city, which was before the king's gate. And Mordecai told him of all that had happened to him, and the sum of the money that Haman had promised to pay to the king's treasurers for the Yehudim, to destroy them. Also he gave him the copy of the writing of the decree that was given at Shushan to destroy them, to show to Aster, and to declare it to her, and to instruct her that she should go in to the king, to make supplication to him, and to make request before him for her people. And Ha'ak came and told Aster the words of Mordecai. Again Aster spoke to Ha'ak, and gave him commandment to Mordecai. All the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces know that whoever, whether man or woman, will come to the king into the inner court, who is not called, there is one law of his to put him to death, except to whom the king will hold out the golden scepter, so that he may live. But I have not been called to come in to the king these 30 days. And they told to Mordecai Ashter's words. Then Mordecai commanded to answer Aster, do not think that you will escape in the king's house more than all the Yehudim, for if you completely withhold your peace at this time, an enlargement and deliverance will arise to the Yehudim from another place. But you and your father's house will be destroyed, and who knows whether you will come to the king for such a time as this. Then Aster returned Mordecai this answer, go, gather together all the Yehudim who are present in Shushan, and fast for me, and neither eat nor drink 3 days, day nor night. Also my maidens and I will fast likewise, and so I will go in to the king, which is not according to the law, and if I perish, I perish." So Mordecai went his way, and did according to all that Aster had commanded him. And he besought Jeshojehu, making mention of all the works of Jeshojehu. And he said, "Jeshojehu Elohim, King ruling over all, for all things are in your power, and there is no one who shall oppose you, in your purpose to save Yisrael. For you made the heavens and the earth, and every wonderful thing in the world under the heaven. And you are Lord of all, and there is no one who shall resist you, Jeshojehu. You know all things. You know, Jeshojehu, that it is not of insolence, nor haughtiness, nor love of glory, that I have done this, to refuse obedience to that proud Haman. For I would gladly have kissed the soles of his feet for the safety of Yisrael. But I have done this so that I might not set the glory of man above the glory of Elohim. And I will not worship anyone except you, and I will not do these things with pride. And now, Jeshojehu Elohim, the King, the Elohim of Abraham, spare your people from those looking upon us unto destruction, and they have desired to destroy your ancient inheritance. Do not overlook your peculiar people, whom you have redeemed for yourself, out of the land of Mitzrayim. Hearken to my prayer, propitious to your inheritance, and turn your mourning into gladness, so that we may live and sing praise to your name, Jeshojehu, and do not completely destroy the mouth of them who praise you, Jeshojehu." And all Yisrael cried with all their might, for death was before their eyes. Chapter 6. And Queen Esther took herself for refuge to Jeshojehu, being taken in the agony of death, and having taken off her glorious apparel, she put on the garments of distress and mourning, and instead of grand perfumes, she filled her head with ash and dung. Thus she had greatly brought down her body, and she filled every place of her glad adornments with the curls of her hair. And she besought Jeshojehu Elohim and said, "O my Jeshojehu, you alone are our King. Help me, the destitute, and have no helper but you, for my danger is near at hand. I have heard from my birth in the tribe of my kindred that you, Jeshojehu, took Yisrael out of all the nations, and our fathers out of all their kindred for a perpetual inheritance, and have done for them all that you have said. And now we have sinned before you, and you have delivered us into the hands of our enemies, because we honored their deities. You are righteous, Jeshojehu, but now they are not content with the bitterness of our slavery, but have laid their hands on the hands of their idols, to abolish the decrees of your mouth and completely destroy your inheritance, and to stop the mouth of those who praise you, and to extinguish the glory of your house and your altar, and to open the mouth of the nations to the praises of vanities, and that a mortal king should be admired forever. Jeshojehu, do not resign your scepter to those who are not, and do not let them laugh at our fall, but turn your counsel against them, and make an example of him who has begun to injure us. Remember us, Jeshojehu. Manifest yourself in the time of our affliction, and encourage me, King of deities, and ruler of all dominion. Put harmonious speech into my mouth before the king, before the lion, and turn his heart to him who fights against us, for the complete destruction of him who consented with him. But deliver us by your hand, and help me, the destitute, and have no one but you, Jeshojehu. You know all things, and know that I hate the glory of transgressors, and that I abhor the couch of the uncircumcised, and every stranger. You know my necessity, for I abhor the symbol of my proud station, which is upon my head in the days of my splendor. I abhor it like a menstruous cloth, and I do not wear it in the days of my tranquility. Also your handmaid has not eaten at the table of Haman, and I have not honored the banquet of the king, nor have I drunk wine of libations. Nor has your handmaid rejoiced since the day of my promotion until now, except in you, O Yahweh, Elohim of Abraham. O Elohim, who has power over all, hearken to the voice of the desperate, and deliver us from the hand of those who devise mischief, and deliver me from my fear. Chapter 7. Now it came to pass on the third day that Aster put on royal apparel, and stood in the inner court of the king's house, across from the king's house. And the king sat upon his royal throne in the royal house, over against the gate of the house. And it was so, when the king saw Aster the king standing in the court, that she obtained favor in his sight. And the king held out to Aster the golden scepter that was in his hand. So Aster drew near, and touched the top of the scepter. Then the king said to her, "What do you want, Queen Aster? And what is your request? It will be given to you up to half of the kingdom." And Aster answered, "If it seem good to the king, let the king and Haman come this day to the banquet that I have prepared for him." Then the king said, "Cause Haman to make haste, so that he may do as Aster has said." Therefore the king and Haman came to the banquet that Aster had prepared. And the king said to Aster at the banquet of wine, "What is your petition? And it will be granted you. And what is your request? Even to half of the kingdom it will be performed." Then answered Aster and said, "My petition and my request is, if I have found favor in the sight of the king, and if it please the king to grant my petition, and to perform my request, let the king and Haman come to the banquet that I will prepare for them, and I will do tomorrow like the king has said." Then Haman went forth that day joyful, and with a glad heart. But when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, that he did not stand up, nor moved for him, he was full of indignation against Mordecai. Nevertheless, Haman refused himself, and when he came home, he sent and called for his friends, and Zeresh his wife. And Haman told them of the glory of his riches, and the multitude of his children, and all in which the king had promoted him, and how he advanced him above the captains and servants of the king. Moreover, Haman said, "Indeed, Aster the queen did not let any man except myself come in with the king to the banquet that she had prepared. Also, tomorrow I am invited to her with the king. Yet all this avails me nothing, so long as I see Mordecai the Yehudi sitting at the king's gate." Then Zeresh, his wife, and all his friends said to him, "Let a gallows be made of 50 cubits high, and tomorrow speak to the king that Mordecai may be hanged upon it. Then go in merrily with the king to the banquet." And the thing pleased Haman, and he caused the gallows to be made. Chapter 8. On that night the king could not sleep, and he commanded to bring the sefer of records of the chronicles that he had read before the king. And it was found written that Mordecai had told Bigthana and Teresh, 2 of the king's chamberlains, the keepers of the door, who sought to lay hands on King Ahasuerus. And the king said, "What honor and dignity has been done to Mordecai for this?" Then the king's servants who ministered to him said, "There is nothing done for him." And the king said, "Who is in the court?" Now Haman had come into the outer court of the king's house to speak to the king to hang Mordecai on the gallows that he had prepared for him. And the king's servant said to him, Behold, Haman stands in the court. And the king said, Let him come in. So Haman came in, and the king said to him, What should be done to a man whom the king delights to honor? Now Haman thought in his heart, To whom would the king delight to honor more than myself? And Haman answered the king, For the man whom the king delights to honor, let the royal apparel be brought which the king uses to wear, and the horse that the king rides upon, and the royal crown which is set upon his head. And let this apparel and horse be delivered to the hand of one of the king's most noble captains, so that they may array the man whom the king delights to honor, and bring him on horseback through the streets of the city, and proclaim before him, Thus it will be done to the man whom the king delights to honor. Then the king said to Haman, Make haste, take apparel and the horse, as you have said, and do so to Mardukai, the Yehudi, who sits at the king's gate. Let nothing fail of all that you have spoken. Then Haman took the apparel and the horse and arrayed Mardukai, and brought him on horseback through the street of the city, and proclaimed before him, Thus it will be done to the man whom the king delights to honor. And Mardukai came again to the king's gate, but Haman hasted to his house mourning, and having his head covered. And Haman told Zeresh, his wife, and all his friends, everything that had befallen him. Then his wise men and Zeresh, his wife, said to him, If Mardukai is of the seed of the Yehudim, whom you have begun to fall, you shall not prevail against him, but shall surely fall before him. And while they were still talking with him, the king's chamberlains came and hurried to bring Haman to the banquet that Esther had prepared. Chapter 9. So the king and Haman came to the banquet of Esther the queen. And the king said again to Esther on the second day of the banquet of wine, What is your petition, Queen Esther? And it will be granted you. And what is your request? And it will be performed unto half of the kingdom. Then Esther the queen answered and said, If I have found favor in your sight, O king, and if it pleases the king, let my life be given me at my petition, and my people at my request. For we are sold, my people and I, to be destroyed, to be slain, and to perish. But if we had been sold for bondmen and bondwomen, I would have held my tongue, although the enemy could not countervail the king's damage. Then the king Ahasuerus answered and said to Esther the queen, Who is he, and where is he, who desires to do so in his heart? And Esther said, The adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman. Then Haman was afraid before the king and the queen. And the king, arising from the banquet of wine, in his wrath, went into the palace garden. And Haman stood up to make request for his life to Esther the queen, for he saw that there was evil determined against him by the king. Then the king returned out of the palace garden into the place of the banquet of wine, and Haman was fallen upon the bed whereon Esther was. Then the king said, Will he also force the queen before me in my house? As the word went out of the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. And Harbana, one of the chamberlain, said to the king, Behold also the gallows, 50 cubits high, which Haman had made for Mardukai, who had spoken good for the king, stands in the house of Haman. Then the king said, Hang him on it. So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mardukai. Then the king's wrath was pacified. Chapter 10. On that day, the king Ahasuerus gave the house of Haman, the enemy of the Yehudim, to Esther the queen, and Mardukai came before the king, for Aster had told him who he was to her. And the king took off the ring which he had taken from Haman, and gave it to Mordecai. And Aster set Mordecai over the house of Haman. And Aster spoke still again before the king, and fell down at his feet, and besought him with tears to put away the mischief of Haman the Agagi, and his schemes that he had devised against the Yehudim. Then the king held out the golden scepter toward Aster. So Aster arose and stood before the king, and said, If it please the king, and if I have found favor in his sight, and the thing seem right before the king, and I am pleasing in his eyes, let it be written to reverse the letters devised by Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagi, which he wrote to destroy the Yehudim, which are in all the king's provinces. For how can I endure to see the evil that will come upon my people? Or how can I endure to see the destruction of my kindred? Then the king Ahasuerus said to Aster the queen, and to Mordecai the Yehudi, Behold, I have given Aster the house of Haman, and they have hanged him upon the gallows, because he had laid his hand upon the Yehudim. And you will write also for the Yehudim, as you like, in the king's name, and seal it with the king's ring. For the writing which is written in the king's name, and sealed with the king's ring, no man may reverse. Then the king's scribes were called at that time, in the 3rd month, that is the month of Shiwan, on the 23rd of it. And it was written according to all that Mordecai commanded to the Yehudim, and to the lieutenants, and the deputies and rulers of the provinces, who are from India to Cush, 127 provinces, to every province according to its writing, and to every people after their language, and to the Yehudim according to their writing, and according to their language. And he wrote in the name of King Ahasuerus, and sealed it with the king's ring, and sent letters by post on horseback, riders on mules, camels, young dromedaries, in which the king granted the Yehudim, who were in every city, to gather themselves together, and to stand for their life, to destroy, to slay, and to cause to perish all the power of the people and province that would assault them, little ones and women, and to take the plunder of them for a prey, upon one day in all provinces of the king Ahasuerus, upon the 13th of the 12th month, which is the month Adar. The copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published to all people, and that the Yehudim will be ready against that day to avenge themselves on their enemies. So the post that rode upon the mule and camels went out, being hastened and pressed on by the king's commandment, and the decree was given at Shishun the palace. And Mordecai went out from the presence of the king in royal apparel of blue and white, and with a great gold crown, and with a garment of fine linen and purple. And the city of Shushan rejoiced and was glad. The Yehudim had light, and gladness, and joy, and honor, and in every province and in every city, wherever the king's commandment and his decree came, the Yehudim had joy and gladness, a feast and a great day. And many of the people from the land became Yehudim, for the fear of Yehudim fell upon them. Chapter 11. Now in the 12th month, that is, the month of Adar, on the 13th day of the same, when the king's commandment and his decree drew near to be performed, in the day that the enemies of the Yehudim hoped to have power over them, through it was turned to the contrary, that the Yehudim had ruled over those who hated them. The Yehudim gathered themselves together in their cities throughout all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus, to lay hands upon them and seek their injury. And no man could withstand them, for the fear of them fell upon all people. And all the rulers of the provinces, and the lieutenants, and the deputies, and officers of the king helped the Yehudim, because the fear of Mordecai fell upon them. For Mordecai was great in the king's house, and his fame went out throughout all the provinces. For this man, Mordecai, became greater and greater. Thus the Yehudim struck all their enemy with the stroke of the sword and slaughter and destruction, and did what they would to those who hated them. And in Shushan the palace, the Yehudim slew and destroyed 500 men, and Parshandata, and Dalpun, and Aspata, and Parata, and Adalai, and Aridata, and Parmashta, and Arisai, and Aridai, and Wayezata. They slew the 10 sons of Haman, the son of Hamadata, the enemy of the Yehudim. But on the plunder they did not lay their hand. And the king said to Aster the queen, The Yehudim have slain and destroyed 500 men of Shushan, the palace, and the 10 sons of Haman. What have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? Now, what is your petition? And it will be granted you. Or what is your request further? And it will be done. Then Aster said, If it pleases the king, let it be granted to the Yehudim who are in Sheshun to do tomorrow also according to this day's decree, and let Haman's 10 sons be hanged upon the gallows. And the king commanded it to be done. And the decree was given at Shushan, and they hanged Haman's 10 sons. For the Yehudim who were in Shushan gathered themselves together on the 14th day also of the month of Adar, and slew 300 men at Shushan, but on the prey they did not lay their hand. But the other Yehudim who were in the king's provinces gathered themselves together, and stood for their lives, and had rest from their enemies, and slew 75,000 of their foes. But they did not lay their hand on the prey. On the 13th day of the month Adar, and on the 14th day of the same, they rested and made it a day of feasting and gladness. But the Yehudim who were at Shushan assembled together on the 13th of it, and on the 14th of it, and on the 15th of the same they rested, and made it a day of feasting and gladness. Therefore the Yehudim of the villages who dwelt in the unwalled towns made the 14th of the month of Adar a day of gladness and feasting, and a good day, and of spending portions one to another. And Mordecai wrote these things, and sent letters to all the Yehudim who were in all the provinces of the king of Ahasuerus, both near and far, to establish it among them, so that they will keep the 14th day of the month of Adar, and the 15th day of the same yearly, as the days in which the Yehudim rested with their enemies, and the month which was turned to them from sorrow to joy, and from mourning to a good day, that they will make themselves days of feasting and joy, and the sending portions one to another, and gifts to the poor. And the Yehudim undertook to do as they had begun, and as Mordecai had written to them, because Haman, the son of Hamadata, the Hagagi, the enemy of all the Yehudim, had devised against the Yehudim to destroy them, and to cast pur, that is, the lot, to consume them, and to destroy them. But when Aster came before the king, he commanded by letters that this wicked device which is devised against the Yehudim will return upon his own head, and that he and his sons will be hanged on the gallows. Therefore they called these days Purim, after the name of Pur. Therefore all the words of this letter, and of that which they had been concerning this matter, and which had come to them, the Yehudim ordained and took upon them, and upon their seed, and upon all those who joined to them, so as it will not fail, that they would keep these 2 days according to their writing, and according to their appointed time every year, and that these days will be remembered and kept throughout every generation, every family, every province, every city, and that these days of Purim will not fail among the Yehudim, nor the memorial of them perish from their seed. Then Esther the queen, the daughter of Abihail, and Mordecai the Yehudi, wrote with all authority to confirm the second letter of Purim, and he sent letters to the Yehudim, to the 127 provinces of the kingdom of Ahasuerus, words of peace and truth, to confirm these days of Purim in their appointed times, according as Mordecai the Yehudi and Esther the queen had enjoined them, and as they had decreed for themselves and for their seed, the matters of the fasting and their cry. And the decree of Aster confirmed these matters of Purim, and it was written in the Sefer. And the king Ahasuerus laid a tribute upon the land, and the isles of the sea, and all the acts of his power and his might, and the declaration of the greatness of Mordecai, whereunto the king advanced him, are they not written in the Sefer of the Chronicle of the kings of Madai and Paras? For Mordecai the Yehudi was next to the king Ahasuerus, and great among the Yehudim, and accepted all the multitude of his brethren, seeking the wealth of his people, and speaking peace to all his seed. The end. Thank you for listening to my interpretation of Esther. I hope that you find my Bible series, Khureb BeRuakh, Sword of the Spirit, enlightening. The word of Yahweh is a treasure trove of mysteries. It's amazing what you'll discover when you read it with your eyes open. My name is Wendy, and you've been called out of darkness